Hello, this is Malorian, and this is our tactical team, and we're going to be talking about today is just war machine tactics in 8th, and just the different type of war machines, how you can use them, some other type of general tactics to be using them for, and let's just get right to it. So, to begin with, one of the simplest war machines is something like the bolt thrower. You put it down there, and it shoots. Pretty simple. Not a lot of guesswork. There actually is zero guesswork, and really the only thing to say there is make sure that you have your bolt throwers more on the flanks. And the reason why I say that is even though, well, the big thing for bolt throwers, you want to be going through ranks. And if you have in the front, of course, if you see all these ranked up units, you can go through them, but you don't want to be wasting your shots on little 5-6 point troops. You want to be shooting for the elite things, and well, a lot of elite things are not going to have a lot of ranks, or maybe it's just one rank. Let's say that it turns out there are still knights, or maybe it's a unit of trolls or something. They're usually just going to be the one rank, and so if you put your bolt throwers on the flanks of your formation, that gives you a better chance that you're going to be set up for that flank shot. So a very easy thing there, and while we're already talking about this, let's already talk about the sacrificial war machine. Now, when you're looking at different elements in your army, you might feel like a war machine is very important because look at it, it's a war machine, right? It's big, it's important, it kills things. But if you look at it points wise, a lot of these things are fairly cheap. A spear chuck is 35 points. A dwarven bolt thrower before any upgrades is 45 points. So, and in the long scheme of things, that doesn't matter. So if that's going to mean that they're going to be sending off some expensive unit to go and try and deal with it, well, that's great. That means that they're taking, say, for extremes, a 200 point unit to take care of your 30 point unit, 35 point unit, meaning that the bulk of your army has that much less to face when they're dealing with it. So you can be capitalizing and getting a lot more victory points while they're just using their effort to get a little bit. So there's a little fast thing there. Let's go to the next type of simple thing, and we're going to be talking about the grudge thrower, stone throwers in general. So when you're trying to fire these, it's fairly simple. In 8th, you don't even have to guess distance anymore. You just say the center of a unit and you roll. Pretty simple. In general, you want to be looking for the more block troops, so you're going to be hitting more of them, but that's pretty much as simple it gets, and then all of a sudden it gets a little bit more tricky the more thought you put into it. To begin with, you want to think about, well, what's the worst case scenario for the scatter, right? And you want to try and turn some of these misses into hits. So just knowing that, okay, if you have 3 units of blocks, that if I put into the center one, if it scatters left or right, I'm still hitting a unit. And depending on what those units are, that could change your shooting priority, because even though normally maybe the one on the left is more of a priority, if you want to try and make sure that you do some damage for sure, you might aim at the center one, just so that no matter if you get any of those scatters, you're still going to be doing this damage. Opposite of that is that, if you had one of your own units that's pretty close, instead of shooting at the center, maybe you're shooting a little bit farther over here, so there's less of a chance you'll scatter onto your own unit, which always seems to happen. Another thing to remember with these grudge throwers that a lot of people seem to be forgetting, it seems, is that they're not just for blocks, and they're actually fantastic for taking out monsters. Especially going from 7th to 8th, with the guess, this has to be a perfect shot, because you're really looking for that dead center of the template. Well, now that guessing is gone, it's right on, and that the scatter, if you look at your scatter dice, 2 of them are hits. So that means one third of the time you're going to be hitting this guy, and depending on the size of the base, the 2 in scatter might be hitting him as well. And we are doing a high strength hit that does d6 wounds. This thing can smash a chariot, smash a monster in no time. And seeing as how these hits hit both the machine and the rider, if they're silly enough to put a character on there, you're smashing them both. So really try and keep this in mind when you're trying to pick your targets. If you're looking at a big huge block of night goblins, and maybe they also have a giant, well, who cares if you kill a handful of night goblins most of the time? Maybe you should be going for that giant, for that one big hit, take it out to make sure it's not going to be your pain in your side later. So just try and keep that in mind there. So those are the two main types of ones. If you want to think about more, let's look at your flamethrower thing. So like say with the Skaven warp fire, or for the flame cannon if you're a poor dwarf player and you're now stuck with this crappy war machine. One of the things to be looking here is that, of course, you're looking for the big unit to shoot this into, because of how the template looks. If it's going to scatter out, if you have a long block enemy troop, that means that no matter how much it scatters, it's going to hit, so just try to make sure you hit that right. The other thing is a lot of these things cause panic, so if you can go across several units, cause several panic tests. Yes, I know in 8th with re-rolls and everything, you don't panic that often, but hey, it's not going to happen if you don't even make them take tests, right? And if you make them take 2-3 tests, and you keep doing this, eventually they're going to start failing. Now, the other thing you want to do here too is you kind of want to save this for 2 reasons. One, if right up from the get-go you're shooting at these templates, you're going to key in your opponent and say, wow, that's actually fairly deadly. If that hit me, that's going to kill a lot of guys. They'll target it with archers or something, boom, it's gone. Whereas if you held it on and got close, you can get that shot off before they're kind of tipped on to how deadly this piece of machine is. The other part to it is you have to worry about the little misfire, right? If you're hoping for that scatter of 10, which will only happen, that 1 in 6 times, well, you're also risking that the 1 in 6 times you're going to be getting a misfire, and a lot of times for these flamethrower things, the misfire template or table is pretty harsh. So you really want to save it until it actually has a good chance of actually working. So there's that one. And finally comes to the black magic cannon. Cannons seem very simple, and a lot of people ask, what is the perfect distance to be targeting for your cannon now that it's not guess anymore? And the problem is that there really is no perfect single spot, because there's so many different situations that are going to be taken into account here. I mean, are you trying and hit a single model? Are you trying to hit a block? Is it a very long block that, if you hit a lot of ranks, it doesn't really matter, you're just trying to make sure it's going to be landing somewhere in and going through that? Or is it something where you're trying to hit one block as well as the one behind? Are you trying to make sure that you don't hit this over here? So really, you have to keep that into account. And the other part after this is that even if you had a perfect number, because you have the 2 artillery dice going into it, there's so much variation that you're not really controlling anything anyway. So a lot of times what I'll say when you're shooting at something that's a single model that you just want to try and hit is, let's say like for the giant, if you're trying to aim for the giant, I would put it 8 inches is where you're guessing from, is the very back of that base. This is obviously, oh, here's a giant right here, how perfect. So here it is, you're shooting at it, you're shooting from the cannon this way, and what you're targeting is 8 inches from the very back. So that means that 2/3 of the time, you're going to be in a great spot to hit it. It's only when it's a misfire or a 10 that you're shooting all the way past it. And then otherwise, even then, you can get a 2 and a 2 and you're not getting to it, right? And again, if we're talking about different base sizes, the base size of a giant and of a dragon base is much different. So those are going to change too. So if you have a really long dragon base, well, okay, maybe it's 10 inches from the back, because now you have so much more give in the front. If we're looking at a block, a large block, usually what I'll say there is you want to be shooting somewhere about 8 inches from the center of the block. If you're looking to bounce further and hit 2 units, maybe you would just, it really depends. How many ranks are there? This is 8th now. We're not looking at always just 4 ranks, or 5 ranks. Sometimes there's 10, 15 ranks. It's so varied. And with the 2 rolls on it, all I really want to say is just play with it and have fun. There obviously is a golden zone where really you should be saying, like I said, 8 inches from the back of it. But whether it's 6, you're really at the mercy of the dice anyway. So really, just trying to do your best bet and see what happens. And another thing in 8th is now you have to roll for everyone like a bolt thrower. So you can have your perfect shot, and all of a sudden the first guy you roll a 1 on, he basically catches the cannonball, and it's over. So really be careful for stuff like that, or not even careful, just know that it can happen, and so that you shouldn't be so serious about these types of shots. So those are all the different types of war machines. Next thing I want to talk about is the way you use them. First of all, really know your synergies. And I'm going to come back to the great thing of the cannon with the cannon snipe. Of course, when you bring down the unit enough, you can all of a sudden start sniping off characters. And now in 8th, that things like the BSB are so important, you've got to be looking for this whenever it's possible. And it could be then that you're going to be shooting everything else for it. You know, you have your grudge throwers shooting at it, you're going to have your regular shooting at it, and that's going to bring the unit small enough that all of a sudden they don't get look out sir, and then you send in the cannon to take it out. So make sure that you have your order correct so you can get those things to work. As well, of course, you want to, if you are shooting a template at a unit, you want to shoot the template first before you do regular shooting, just because of course there's more models there to hit. You know, that's really obvious stuff, but still try and just keep it in mind. Another thing to keep in mind too is the dreaded last turn. If you really don't think you're going to destroy a unit in the last turn, don't shoot your war machines. I don't know how many times I've seen this where there's a full unit, somebody decides, well, let's shoot a cannon at it for fun, misfire, destroyed. So for the possibility of getting 0 points, you just gave up 100 points. You know, it's just meaningless, and I've seen games go to losses or wins to ties from this. So just be really sure. Another thing is, of course, with your shooting, don't shoot at a unit and try and break it down unless you're planning to destroy it. You know, you're not always in your game plan to destroy every single unit. Sometimes this horde you're going to go after, and this one you're going to try and keep back. And if that's it, even though this unit is smaller, don't throw the template over here because it has more chance to kill more guys. Go after your priority. Go after what you're actually trying to wipe out. There are no half points anymore. It doesn't matter if you kill 49 of 50 models. You have to kill them all. So don't waste war machine shots going to things that aren't going to matter. Getting into dwarves, which are kind of more the King's War machines, just because there's so much customization you can do with them. My biggest warning here is just watch how much runes you put into war machines. Some of them can be great, say like the rune of forging on a cannon, or the rune of penetration on a grudge thrower, which adds 1 strength, so all of a sudden you can have a strength 5 grudge thrower. The problem is I can see some dwarf players that kind of throw on things for fun, like runes immolation and all these things. You know, rune of burning is 5 points, it's cheap, it can have a great effect in the game, but a lot of these other ones, all of a sudden you can see the cost of your war machine doubling, even tripling, and for very little gain, if anything at all. So really keep a handle on making sure that if you do put a rune on it, that you're going to get the most out of it. Very last thing I want to touch on is things like Master Engineers and the great synergy you can have with them now. The way they work now, of course, is that you don't attach to a war machine. They affect war machines within a certain radius. So what you want now is war machine batteries. And so if you are a heavy war machine dwarf army, what that could be is, again, you still have your bolt throwers on the flanks, because that's still probably going to be the most important thing to actually get a flank shot. But in the center you could have your cannons and your grudge thrower all tightly packed together so that your master engineer can be affecting all of them. So when you're going across, okay, did fine, oh, misfire on this one, okay, he fixes this one. So all of a sudden, with this, same thing with Empire, grouping war machines becomes more important so that you get the most out of the points you're putting into these master engineers. And that's really it in the bottle, you know. War machines, a great thing, great pack a great punch, but make sure you use them properly, otherwise it could just cost you in the end. So hope you liked it, and we'll see you again next weekend. Bye.